What's it mean when I say somebody's been stripped of their identity? Well, let's explore this on today's Ask a Shrink. In several of my videos, I refer to any child who has some sort of childhood trauma, maybe a victim of abuse, that what can happen through that process growing up is they've been stripped of their identity. I want to explore that a little bit more in detail today. Other people's views about you seems way more important than how you feel about yourself. In fact, you live your life based on what others are saying, how they're treating you. Rather than from an internal point of view, an internal focus, you're relying on the external, which is going to be problematic for sure. So the first step in reclaiming your identity is to acknowledge that it's been stripped away. It's not your fault. Be honest to yourself about the fact that you're really struggling with your identity. You don't know who you are. That's okay. That's the first major step to take in fact, reclaiming who you are. With a therapist, you can move past and discard the labels that you had to attach through a lot of your life and begin just assessing what's really going on in here. You probably may not have the answers to that right away. Begin a trial and error method of seeing what you like, what you don't like. This could be with food, with the arts, with music, with social groups, the way you like to have fun, places you like to go. This could be absolutely everything. Think about what's important to you, the characteristics that you want to have, that you'd like to have. They're there in you. You just have to begin exploring them and pull them out of you. What qualities, what goals do you aspire to? Look at hobbies or interests you currently have or have had in the past and ask yourself, was it something you really chose? Maybe it was, perhaps, but maybe it was because it's what others were doing. It's what you were told to do. It was the latest fad, so I'll give this a try. Or my group of friends seem to like to do this thing, so I'll do this thing too. So examine different things that you've been involved with, and if it didn't come from an internal place, then it needs reevaluating. And then begin seeking out and doing the things that you actually are choosing for yourself, not based on what anybody else wants or thinks. Be very aware of your feelings, all your feelings. Journal them if you need to so you can keep up with everything. And be aware of any moment when you're seeking external validation in any way. We want to bring that into all internal validation. That's how you're going to reclaim yourself and find your identity. Well, if kids are raised in a way where the parents on some level are being abusive or emotionally smothering them, not giving them wings to, so to speak, to grow up and be healthy and leave home and have a strong identity, then what can happen is one of the coping mechanisms is to just become a chameleon. Now, childhood development is so important. There's stages to it. Children define themselves on some level to how the parents are treating them, how the parents view them. If the parents are treating them like they don't matter, you're never going to amount to anything, you're basically useless, then the child will internalize that. There's a good chance of this and take on that role as their identity. That's what they believe. That's what they've been taught, sad as it is. So we have a problem here with what I just mentioned at home, growing up in the family. But we take on many identities in our life, right? As we get older, we have an identity as a student at school. We have an identity as a jock if we're on a sports team. We have an identity as a volunteer or if we're volunteering at some sort of nonprofit or something. There's many identities, many roles we take on in our life. So the problem is the foundational role, what we learned as a child, has been badly damaged. Then that damage is going to permeate into all our other roles as we get older unless we get some therapeutic help and address this. So now in some identity role as an adult where you're needed to have a voice, you're needed to be strong. Maybe you want to run for political office or something. You need to lead. Well, you may have that aspiration to be a political leader or to be a social activist, but if you're coming from a place of identity damage, that's going to be very, very difficult, very challenging. The child who's had their identity stripped away will probably suffer in school, perhaps even with their studies, because as a way to fit in and cope, they may be ruminating a lot, going to their head, having all sorts of anxiety. Maybe they're depressed. They may be socially awkward because after all, they don't know who they really are. And so then they can be swept away by whatever the current fad is, the current tidal wave that comes in and sweeps them away. Well, that's not healthy because you have to learn how to think for yourself if you're going to be a healthy adult. You have to know where to draw the line in the sand with different scenarios and situations in your life. Somebody who doesn't have a strong identity is just probably going to be very malleable, go along with, don't have much of a voice. They're afraid to show their voice. They don't even know what their voice is. And then that can filter into problems in a primary relationship, right? Because to communicate, fall in love, work out all the thousands of details of raising a family if you have children, got to figure out finances. Are you going to buy a home? I'm angry at you, but I don't know how to say it, so it can filter into all sorts of areas in a relationship. And for somebody who doesn't have a strong identity, they may just swallow their feelings. I'm walking on eggshells here. I just want everything to be better. Well, that's not going to be helpful or healthy in a relationship, but that all starts from the childhood where their identity was stripped away by the toxic parents. So the child didn't do anything wrong at all. This is on the parents, but it's a result of the dysfunctional, problematic childhood. When you don't have a strong sense of self because your identity may have been stripped away, then you may have trouble as an adult with empathy, showing empathy for others, resolving conflict, problem solving. You may not even know what your sense of humor is because you got so used to laughing at what people think you should laugh at, what other people laughed at. You decided, well, I need to find this funny. Maybe it's not funny to you at all. But you went along with it because you don't know how you feel. You don't know what really is humorous to you. Being honest and upfront and transparent may be a problem because as a kid you had to hide, couldn't be too visible. Remember what I said earlier? You couldn't have much of a voice because you may get whacked or somehow put down, somehow hurt, emotionally hurt or physically hurt. So you never were helped, nor did you learn how to do this. So as an adult and you're beginning to figure this out, hopefully you are, maybe you feel stupid, scared most of the time, useless. You're blaming yourself for something that's not your fault. And with the feeling of being unreliable, you can't really rely on yourself even, that which of course can then cause low self-esteem, which has probably been there in general anyhow your whole life. Then you may be drawn to numbing this somehow. So a lot of people who feel this way numb through different addictions. So I hope this is helpful for some of you. Please leave me some comments below. Maybe you've had your identity stripped away. I'd love to hear your story a little bit perhaps. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.